Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more minutes for folks to jump on the line before we dive in this morning, afternoon, depending your time zone. Okay, great. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today to discuss how the SAP Commerce Ascend extension can work for your business. I'm joined today with a tremendous group of panelists, and we'll dive in here shortly. But really what I wanted to start with was to talk about how we will leverage that in today's conversation. So before we jump straight into the extension and how that's leveraged to amplify and speed up a composable landscape within your ecosystem, we wanted to set a foundation across all of the parties that have been brought together by this. So we'll dive in and start a little bit first on how AI powered search and personalization can impact your digital ecosystem, and transition into what a headless CMS can do for omni-channel enablement, to discuss that composable landscape and the perspective there. And then we'll wrap up really diving into the extension itself and how that's been architected to scale with your organization. Just a few logistical items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded, so there will be follow-on. And at any point in time, there is a question section within GoToWebinar here. Please feel free to drop your questions. At the end, we will have a Q&A time with all of our panelists to kind of help drive anything that you have immediately that we can help resolve on today's call. My name is Liz Duggan. I'm the EVP of Strategic Consulting here at Smith. As I said, I'm thrilled to have you all here today. I'm joined by a tremendous group with Lisa at Coveo, Jim at Contentful, Riyadh at SAP, and then our very own Ryan here at Smith as well. So what I'd like to do foundationally is just to talk about why we wanted to bring this together and how this really got teed up. I think within the ecosystem and landscape, there's a lot of confusion that's occurring across organizations, and how to even start to broach a composable landscape, not ignoring the existing tech investments that you have today. And those lines keep getting more and more blurred, making it harder for business stakeholders like yourself to figure out the right solution at the right time and the right need. So here at Smith, one of the ways we've been doing that is through kind of our three philosophies. Incremental is key. So as we look at this and how we start to drive things forward, how do we do that over time, setting you up for long-term success focused around business value? The next is focusing in on the features, not the enabling technologies. What is it that we need to solve as we go through that roadmap? And then allow the rest to enable through the pieces and parts based off of what's going to drive the most value soonest for your business, so that it becomes almost a self-funding mechanism, either through operational gains or even just increased conversion. And with these blurred lines, it's very important that you make sure you're picking the right tools within the right intent of system as you go through that. And I think this is a good frame up before we start diving in and talking about the solutions within the landscape, and really how we want to start to drive that moving forward. So with that, I'm pleased to turn things over and get started here with Lisa kicking things off from Coveo.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Liz. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Greystone. I handle product strategy for SAP within Coveo. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's get started. Coveo, you might have heard of us, hopefully. We are a publicly traded enterprise software as a service company. We're focused on, but also very passionate about applied AI. Simply put, we are a single AI platform that can power both external customer facing as well as internal sales and customer support experiences. We have over 600 software as a service subscription customers around the world. We work with more than 150 strategic partners and integrations, and we have been consistently recognized as leaders in Gartner's Magic Quadrant, Forrester Wave for cognitive search, and even Infotech's customer survey. On top of that, we also have the amazing pleasure to be an SAP endorsed partner. So looking at the typical commerce challenges that we're seeing, when talking about customers, commerce customers, interesting enough, across both B2B as well as B2C companies, businesses, we consistently see and address challenges such as businesses struggling with complex and large catalogs and product information. We see B2B businesses in particular struggling with specific customer pricing, as well as the need for restrictions within those pricings. And we surprisingly still see a lack of proper one-to-one personalization capabilities. We see trends such as heavier reliance on rules, manual rules in particular, which prevent businesses from being truly agile, truly adaptable, especially in conditions and market conditions and competition conditions that we see nowadays. Search trends. Search tends to be quite hard to use still. It's cumbersome to set up, even with a very lengthy implementation processes on legacy and adjustments on legacy solutions. We still see that the vast majority of our customers struggle with high maintenance from business users running ongoing. And in return, that obviously makes it hard for buyers to actually easily and accurately find the desired products. Therefore, visibility into long tail or profitable products is very limited, and even transparency over local inventory poses huge challenges to companies, obviously impacting the entire overall business. So people discover products in different ways, but initially they can generally be largely split into two main groups of shoppers. There's there's a segment of shoppers that are browsing. They need guidance. They need recommendations tailored to them individually. They also need help with inspiring discovery. And then there's at the opposite spectrum, you have the shoppers or the buyers that know exactly what they want. They just want to get there fast and they want to get there accurately. They don't want any friction nor delays in the middle. Now, our AI platform is able to support and to cater for across the entire spectrum, to support all types of shoppers, delivering best-in-class search and complete product discovery experience, including our catalog index optimized for e-commerce search, with functionalities such as ML-powered content and product recommendations, and dynamic navigation powered by machine learning to suggest, boost, and reorder filters automatically and in real time, in session. All are built to handle both B2C as well as B2B complexity at scale. We therefore make products easier to discover, which is, I'm sure you'll appreciate, the number one reason why customers actually leave a site. We also inspire and guide shoppers to purchase the recommendations and the right personalization. Therefore, we solve the choice and the bounce issues. And we also arm merchandisers with so much needed intuitive tools and customer and product insights so that they can adjust their business needs and they can respond quickly and tailor it for their specific requirements. Therefore, connecting search to all this navigation and recommendation from machine learning actually improves the relevance of the customer's experience across the board. Now, looking at one of our customers, at a customer success story. I'm sure that most of us are familiar with Amsoil. They're one of the top leaders in synthetic lubricant technology, also an SAP Commerce Cloud customer. Now, Amsoil chose our platform to improve search relevance and boost conversions. Those were their two main targets. They faced typical challenges that we see in the market today for a lot of businesses, such as pressure to cut costs, to increase efficiency. They also struggled quite a bit with the legacy search solutions they had and the lack of machine learning to aid customers through their discovery journey on the right products. We help them replace their search technology and leverage machine learning in the process to provide superior customer experiences, which resulted in an increase in conversion rate of 50%, in 2.7 increase percent in average order value, and that drove 2 million revenue in monthly revenue, increase in monthly revenue. So then how do we actually do this? Well, unsurprisingly enough, we have a few tricks, but to stay relevant on today's topic, we are all about relevance with Coveo, you'll find that. There is a winning formula. So that formula is our platform is flexible, is secure, has a very strong focus on composable, API first and microservices approach. We handle multi-region hosting. We handle data residency, multi-region data residency as well. We are highly scalable, high availability, and also elastic to demand. We have our own Coveo headless library, and this is used for developing Coveo-powered UI components, and it works as a middle layer for applications, opening a line of communication in between the UI elements and all the Coveo solutions that we provide. We also use Atomic Library, which is a collection of pre-built UI components, which is used to create versatile search interfaces tailored to every single need of our customer. And to sum up, our Coveo Cloud platform is built in such a way that it enables customers and businesses to be able to achieve the right solution, the right formula they need for their business, not the best in breed, the solution they can find out there, but the actual best solution that they need to address their industry and market needs at the same time, while also future-proofing their businesses in the long term. That was it from my side. Thank you very much for listening. And Jim, over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Lisa. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Jim Ambers, a solutions strategist at Contentful, based in Palo Alto, California. And I'll give you a short overview of how we can help you as an SAP Commerce Cloud customer. And let's see if I can advance these slides and go to webinar. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so let me tell you how Contentful got started. Okay, it's 2013. Our founders are in Berlin, and they were building native mobile apps. And they were trying to tie a content management system to power the content to these mobile apps. But there was a basic problem, and that is that every single content management system 10 years ago was built for a single purpose, to build HTML pages that get rendered in a web browser. And the problem is that that didn't work for native mobile apps. And for the same reason, it would not work for augmented reality or virtual reality devices, or digital kiosks and storefronts, or the conversational interfaces that Amazon was building at the time. So they did something new. They created a new type of CMS where the content is stored and managed separately from its presentation. And today we call this a headless CMS. So by decoupling the back-end content management from the front-end presentation, we created kind of a new category of CMSs. And the thing is that by doing this, what this allowed is not only could we power native mobile apps, but basically any type of device, any type of channel. So the idea is that you would create content once, and that content could be used anywhere. And by doing that, in terms of this new kind of approach, since the front-end presentation layer is not tightly coupled with the CMS, This gives your developers a lot of freedom. Okay, they can choose any technology, any framework, any programming language for building the user interface, and that results in rapid development. So there's really kind of three key things to remember about Contentful. One is that we want to be the single content creation hub for all of your content within your enterprise. And when you create content and you publish it, that content can be published to any type of device, any type of channel, not just a page in a web browser. But there's one challenge here. Okay, for all of our customers, beyond just kind of creating content, they want to translate that content into multiple languages. They want to perhaps use some kind of digital asset management system. As Lisa just mentioned, they want to do personalization, analytics, A/B testing, and so on. And the thing is that no single vendor can possibly do this. The average enterprise today is powering their website with over 100 MarTech and AdTech apps. So how can a single vendor do this? Well, they can't. So that's why we created something that we call the app framework. And with the app framework, it's open source. What we've developed is we've made it now very easy to extend the Contentful web app. So you can do translation to different languages. You can access a DAM, you can do personalization, you can do A/B testing by integrating with other API-based services. And we now have a marketplace of over 80 pre-built integrations with those kinds of SaaS services, such that it's a 2-minute install. You find the kind of application you want to integrate with, you click install, plug in an API access token, and in 2 minutes you're up and running. And the latest addition to our app marketplace is the SAP connector for SAP Commerce Cloud for Contentful, meaning that you can browse and search for your products in your SAP Commerce Cloud product catalog, and then insert references to them inside of Contentful. Now, how does this apply to e-commerce? Okay, Contentful has a ton of e-commerce customers, and when they come to us, they're all really kind of saying the same thing. One is that it's no longer okay to have an e-commerce site that's simply rows and columns of thumbnails of images. You've got to seamlessly integrate editorial content with your commerce content. Secondly, you just heard about this from Coveo. Netflix discovered a few years ago that they have about 20 seconds to grab someone's attention to find a show that they want to see before they move off the site. Okay, 20 seconds. And what they did is they invested tens of millions of dollars in a recommendation engine, which they claim is saving them over $1 billion of churn per year by people finding, at this point, 80% of the content that they view is coming from their recommendation engine. So with e-commerce, I think you have less than 20 seconds to grab someone's attention. It's no longer a nice to have. You have to have a personalized experience for your users. In terms of performance, you lose 7 to 10% conversion with every additional second of page load time. Okay, it's huge. So you have to have a blazingly fast site if you're an e-commerce site. Now, many of our customers are using static site generators, these kinds of new JavaScript frameworks, where they can statically build every page of their site, automatically push it out to a CDN. There's other kinds of optimizations, and you can't possibly have a faster site than that kind of approach. Now, that also gives you really good scalability, right? If you're pre-building all of your pages and they're on a CDN, well, you don't have to worry about huge spikes in traffic. Now, with Contentful, you're not dealing with servers, okay? With traditional content management systems, even if they're in the cloud, typically you're dealing with load balancers, web servers, database servers, and if you have a spike of, say, 20x in traffic on Black Friday, you need 20x amount of hardware to support that. We're auto-scaling, okay? Our infrastructure is cloud native. We can absorb any kind of degree of spike in traffic without any kind of need to provision new hardware. The majority of internet consumption today is being done on mobile devices. It's no longer being done on laptops and browsers and so on. So you've got to basically have a really great kind of mobile first optimization. One way that we help out doing that at Contentful is with our images API. You can upload a single high resolution image, say a PNG, and Contentful will automatically convert that image, if the person's browser supports it, to modern image formats like WebP and AVIF. And that will reduce your image sizes by 2 to 3x, dramatically improving the performance of your site. Now, beyond just mobile first delivery, we have customers like IKEA that are delivering or making available to their customers augmented reality applications, so people can see what IKEA furniture looks like inside their home, with their smartphone. We have customers like Bang & Olufsen that are extending the online shopping experience with the in-store shopping experience, where they're powering digital kiosks in stores where the content's coming from Contentful. So omni-channel delivery is essential today. It's way beyond the browser on a PC. And then finally, by doing all this, the name of the game here is enabling your merchandisers to spin up like new personalized landing pages, not in 2 weeks, but in an hour or two. And by doing that, where they don't require developer resources, that frees up your developers to kind of focus on creating better experiences for your users. So let me wrap this up, talk about just kind of 2 showcase e-commerce customers we have. First is Bang & Olufsen. Okay, when they first came to us, they actually had 2 separate sites. They had a site for editorial content, a marketing site, and then they had an e-commerce site. This was the polar opposite of a seamless blend of editorial content and commerce. There were actually 2 separate sites. So when they moved on to Contentful, instead of talking about it, I'd say just go there. Just go to bang-olufsen.com. It's a fantastic site. Okay, it's inspirational in terms of you don't feel like you're on an e-commerce site. It's fantastic, and it has to be inspirational. It's a very high-end luxury electronics brand. They're selling sound bars for $7,000 a piece. It better be a pretty inspirational experience when you're on their website. And next, one of my favorite customers is actually Ruggable. Let's see, do we have a chat here? Any of you have pets? You've probably heard of Ruggable. Probably many of you probably own a Ruggable rug. Okay, they make machine washable rugs. Okay, when Ruggable came to us, they had a lot of issues. Okay, they were just on a single e-commerce platform. They weren't using any kind of content management system. They kind of hit the wall in terms of kind of creating how-to guides, editorial content, things like that. And what was worse was, over Black Friday, over the Black Friday weekend, they would have to have their engineers actually push out changes to their production site to do things like change promotions and change content on Black Friday. What could possibly go wrong? So they moved to Contentful, and last Black Friday was the first time that their merchandisers were able to schedule content changes over the course of that 3-day weekend. Contentful, pushed those changes automatically, and no developers needed. And then on top of that, they always had issues with scalability, with performance, things like that on Black Friday. This was like their first glitch-free Black Friday. And beyond that, they're now doing a high degree of kind of personalization. So go ahead and just bring up a web browser after this and search for pet-friendly rugs, machine washable rugs. You're probably going to see a Ruggable ad at the top, and if you click on that, it's going to be actually a personalized landing page. And then you also see that they're also in the top 2 or 3 of organic search results, because by creating these highly personalized landing pages, you get great SEO as well. And what that resulted in is a 25% increase in their conversion rate, a 7x increase in their click-through rates, for their content. So to kind of wrap this up, you might be concerned if working with us, if you think that Contentful is an early stage startup. Well, we're not. We're not early stage, and I would actually say we're not a startup at this point. We're a scale company. Okay, we're reaching into 1/3 of the Fortune 500. We have 37,000 live websites globally. We have a network of 350 partners. We have enough funding to kind of continue this high growth. And the good news is this: with Contentful, with what you're about to hear from Ryan and so on, you get all the benefits of what I'm talking about in terms of this headless CMS, this omni-channel delivery and so on, without the need to rip and replace your platform. You can do this incrementally, a number of very safe small steps. So take a page of editorial content and go ahead and move that to Contentful, and eventually move your homepage to Contentful and so on. There's no need to kind of rip and replace your existing platform. You can incrementally, in a very safe way, start getting all these advantages with Contentful. So thank you very much. And if you want to find out more, go to contentful.com, click on contact us, and we'll be happy to talk to you. And next, I'm going to hand this over to Riyadh from SAP.
Thanks, Jim, and thank you. Thanks to both of you and Lisa, actually, for this great presentation. I mean, we're really excited to be partnering with truly best of breed. Don't use it against me, Lisa. I'm using a best of breed, but vendors. And I'll talk a little bit more about our partnership, with the likes of Coveo, Contentful, and others. And thanks to the Smith team for giving us the opportunity here to do this all together. This is really great stuff. So in terms of what I'm going to be covering today, let me maybe start with introducing myself. So Riyad Hijal, I run a solution management and strategy for SAP Commerce. And so I'm going to touch a little bit on composability, the topic of composability, arguably the hottest topic in digital commerce today. Maybe try to dispel a little bit, some myths on composability, on whether it's a all or nothing proposition, and then talk a little bit about SAP's point of view as it relates to composability. I mean, as a vendor, SAP has been in the commerce space for quite some time. So I'm sure a lot of you on the call today are, at a minimum curious, maybe even considering moving from, potentially some of you are still on-prem, right? And are evaluating a move to the cloud. And so what does that mean, for you, and so on and so forth. So I'll try and make it as real and tangible as possible, and then of course hand it over to Ryan, who'll walk us through the specifics of what Smith is offering in this space. So with that, let me try and move to the first slide, if it cooperates. Okay. So as I said, I think the topic of composability and microservices has been gathering a lot of steam the last couple of years, and very often we get asked by customers, what is SAP's point of view here? Is the SAP solution composable? If I'm a customer who's on-prem or in the cloud but still using an all-in-one solution, what is the path for me to get into composability? And so let me try by hopefully addressing all of those questions. So let's start with maybe the benefits that we see and that our customers ultimately are telling us they see when they move to somewhat of a, let's say, more composable architecture. I think chief amongst them is agility. And the ability to, frankly, better support the business. It is a very much an IT topic, but it's an IT topic that's ultimately an enabler to better supporting the business. The business is now running, at a very fast speed, and they expect their IT counterparts to be able to help and to be able to meet their needs. And so what composability brings to the table is the ability for businesses to be able to bring new features to market faster, experiment faster, as well as be able, depending on where they are in their digital transformation journey, to potentially remove pieces of functionality and replace them with other pieces of functionality, depending on their current needs. And I think this is the first key takeaway here as it relates to SAP's perspective on composability, is that from our perspective, composability is not a all or nothing approach. What I mean by that is that the narrative of the 90s and the early 2000s of best of breed versus best of suite, I mean, frankly, is quite antiquated. And so the way we look at it is rather, what's the best for me, the best for my needs as a business, as Lisa was saying. And ultimately that answer is going to vary depending on the industry you're in, on what your digital maturity looks like, on the size of your company, even in some instances on the region that you're operating in. And so for us, we're not trying to force feed a certain one size fits all type of architecture for every single customer out there. So I think that's point number one. Point number two is that the topic of composability is very often conflated with the topic of microservices, and they're sometimes even used interchangeably. And I think we as marketers, maybe and thought leaders in the digital commerce space, probably bear a lot of that blame. But ultimately, from our perspective, these are somewhat separate topics, even though obviously they can tie into each other. And when it comes to microservices, again, I think from an architectural pattern perspective, it's not a one-size-fits-all. And so what we typically recommend our customers do is really identify those areas where microservices can actually drive business outcomes for them. And then use that pattern in those specific instances, and just like they would with the composable architecture. So as an example, if you're a B2C retailer in fashion, I mean, obviously discovery is going to be really, really huge for you. And so you could think of wanting really an AI-based search capability, search and discovery capability, and that's where Coveo could come into play. But maybe if you're an industrial manufacturer where your buyers don't really engage via search, that might not be, or discover via search, that might not be the best investment for you, at least at this juncture. And so I think that's where the best for me approach really comes to life. So with that, very often we say, people will ask me or ask us, okay, what does SAP offer, and how is SAP's approach to composability different from some of the other vendors in the market? And so, as I just mentioned, it's very much we start with the business outcomes first, and then from there basically work with the technology and the partners to drive the right architecture for our customers. And so what that means concretely is that we allow our customers to compose at their own pace, depending on where they are in their digital transformation journey. So we have announced our composable offering earlier this year at Shop Talk in March. It is now fully available and in market, and it gives the flexibility for our customers, depending on their needs, to decide what level of granularity they want to compose at. It's also important to note that SAP Commerce Cloud today is a very, very far cry from, let's say, the Hybris product of 2013 when SAP acquired that product, or even prior to that. And so if you haven't familiarized yourselves with SAP Commerce Cloud, as well as all of the benefits that a cloud-native solution, including with capabilities such as the ones discussed by Jim and Lisa around, elastic scaling, on demand, as an example, then I would urge you to do so. And then, of course, in the current digital commerce world, we can't talk about cloud native and cloud native extensibility without talking about event-driven, modern extensibility patterns to augment the solution. And that's what SAP Commerce Cloud with its composable offering also provides. At the beginning of this year, we as an SAP announced our new CX strategy, which is very much industry-led. And what that means is that even though we build foundationally horizontal products and solutions, we then tailor them via specific product investments to individual industries. SAP goes to market along 26 industries, and within CX, we have 8 priority industries across both B2B and B2C, in which we are doubling down from a product investment perspective. And more than happy to discuss what those are in a follow-up as required. And then finally, last but not least, open ecosystem. So we've had a open ecosystem approach for many years now. I think what has changed with this announcement and these partnerships is that while the open ecosystem ethos remains, we have identified key select partners, that are really the stars in their respective categories, with whom we want to basically go above and beyond, not just in terms of go-to-market, but also in terms of product roadmap and strategy alignment. And that's what being an endorsed partner like Contentful and Coveo, amongst others, is all about. So it's really not just stopping and saying, oh, you have APIs, you guys go figure it out and build it on your own. It's really building those integrations, building tight integrations, making sure they're scalable, that they're comprehensive, and that SAP and the partner actually stands behind them. And so we're very, very excited by where we're taking SAP Commerce Cloud and our composable offering. And if you'd like to learn more, feel free to visit sap.com/CRM and click on digital commerce from there. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Ryan.
Fantastic. Thanks, Riyadh. So hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Husenfeld. I'm the CTO Smith. I head up our technology and our delivery here. I'm going to jump into a little bit of what we announced recently with our Ascend product, which for us is the SAP Commerce Cloud composable extension. All right. Before I jump into it too quickly, I wanted to at least set just a really high-level stage, because at times there is confusion. As Riyadh said, sometimes we use terms interchangeably, and I think a lot of us grew up understand the world of monolith. And in this case here, it served us well, but it was really that philosophy of everything all in one, right? Which was the presentation plus the data management plus the services capabilities all in one big package. Over the last few years, we've moved into a lot of headless, and in some cases, more recently, we've also seen headless and composable be used interchangeably. Often, composable implies headless, but the reverse isn't necessarily true. The key there, and as everybody here has already touched on, composability brings that idea of your solution being the combination of multiple different pieces, that best of breed, or some cases that best of need concept of what do I need from different pieces and parts, what are the most important ones to me, how does that come together, and then ultimately how do I present that to my customers. So again, we don't want to use those interchangeably, but composability really is about moving us in the direction of that combination of solutions. So with that, so Ascend, we created Ascend really to help drive the direction in the market with our SAP customers. Ascend, the concept of that is really to rise to a higher position, and that's a perfect fit here. Because for us, Ascend was built as an expedited go-to-market solution for composability, specifically with SAP Commerce Cloud. Now, what does that actually mean? So there's one thing that's really important for us to talk about here, and Ascend was built as the concept of extensions, right? And anybody who's familiar with SAP Commerce Cloud knows that it's always had a very, really at the core of it, a composable mindset where extensions all plug in together to build and augment your existing solution. And that was very much at the heart of what we built here for SAP Commerce Cloud. It's not a take it or leave it. It's not an all or nothing. It's not an accelerant that you start with. It's really a large set of capabilities across our Coveo and Contentful partners specifically that are able to be used individually or pieces of it, and then extend on top of there, right? Which is a very critical point for us. As we've talked about a lot, there's a need to be incremental in this space. It's not a go in and swap out everything, right? It's a come in and maybe change a piece here and there, maybe augment a piece here and there, and build up over time. That kind of compose as you go mentality, as Jared and my team mentioned to me recently. And so for us, Ascend comes together really in four kind of key capabilities that augment SAP Commerce Cloud. So the first is integrations. So obviously we've pre-built the integrations to our partners, and these are both server-side and client-side integrations. We've augmented that with data models. So these data models are specific either to those vendors and integrations or augment the existing SAP Commerce Cloud. Right? There's a lot of time that it takes to plug things in seamlessly versus that, the idea of kind of hacking it apart. And with us building these as extensions, they're designed to seamlessly plug into the existing data models and take over that functionality. The third is extension points. So nothing we could ever build is going to work for everybody. And so the extensions have been built to be extendable themselves, right? To form a foundation of a solution. So what we've built for Contentful, what we've built for Coveo can be used as is, but can also be further augmented for client-specific needs, for industry-specific use cases, or just simply out of preference. And then finally, it's UI components. So ultimately, these have to lend themselves to some sort of customer experience. We have this, again, built flexibly, so work with both SAP's Composable Storefront, formerly known as Spartacus, as well as anybody who's on a traditional web-based, the old MVC accelerator. And so ultimately, there's a lot of flexibility here in how these plug into the services and how they're rendered up to customers that allow us to, again, bring bits and pieces to customers in a way that allows us to augment a solution and drive some incremental value as we go. So I want to double click down on each of these just a little bit here. And these are current capabilities that we've launched. We do have a team that's constantly working on it and building new features every week here in this solution set. So what we have here is just a current representation, not where we actually expect to end up here as we continue to build these out. If I start on the Contentful side, there's a lot of value. And I think, Jim mentioned it in his talk track, but one of the biggest values in bringing a headless CMS in is you could bring it in for one single piece or your entire site, right? There's an ability to have it, you can test it out, or you can take a pain point like landing pages, or even just certain marketing content in an area and augment your site, decide how it works for you, decide how you can get your feet under you as a business, and then expand the usage from there, right? It doesn't require that whole rip and replace of the front end or the experience, which is critically important. So for Contentful, the main capabilities we've delivered in Ascend is full page and individual entity integration. So really what that means is the ability to retrieve and render full content pages. So for example, things like a product how-to or project guides or just help text, help articles or blog articles. So full page or individual entities. So concepts like replacing banner support or different blurbs on category pages or different pieces of content can be done at an individual level or at an entire page level pretty flexibly. Everything that we've built for the components is fully responsive and plugs in. So these are pre-built components. Again, could be the starting point of further augmentation or can be used as is. Another one is PDP related content, which we think is a pretty cool capability. So we have a number of customers who are trying to extend their storytelling, that idea of driving more immersive content, as Jim said, but driving it in a way that's also relevant to a customer and how maybe to use a product, how a product fits with a broader set, just an overview of what, how to maintain your products, things like that. And so what we built are a set of capabilities that allow us to synchronize content within Contentful to products, either at a product ID level, at a product characteristic, at a category level, and display the relevant content on a PDP. So it allows you to go to a PDP and see what sort of content is available that's related or relevant to that product set. So a pretty powerful use case. And then the last one is a very similar concept, but for categories. So the idea of, as you're browsing categories, you have the ability to see content that may be relevant. And this can end up driving a couple of different use cases, but specifically that idea where a user may not be looking for just a big listing of products in a category. They might be looking for help in understanding what that category of products is, or how to use them, or how to select a product within that category or understand the differences between them. And the benefit we have with all of this is all of the work from a marketer or from a content author can be done exclusively in Contentful. And at runtime, that all marries up within Commerce Cloud. So it doesn't require a user to build content and then swivel chair into Commerce to link things up or to add these entries or to put a representation of it in, in Smart Edit or something like that. It all happens automatically based on the linking of the content and the runtime queries. So pretty powerful use cases. On the Coveo side, we've been a Coveo partner for quite a while, and they kind of speak for themselves and the value they bring. The benefit here is for customers who are already on SAP Commerce Cloud, Solar does a great job at keyword search, but it does miss that one-to-one contextual relevancy, that ability to really scale your search without scaling your team. and understand what the user's intending to do without having a hard link in data. And so, you know, as much as we try, most customers don't have the world's most perfect product data, and something like Coveo does a terrific job at augmenting maybe some of the missing data pieces or that manual intervention, as Lisa mentioned, around manual rule-based into things that can be automated, but also can be relevant at a one-to-one level with customers. And so what we have with Ascend for the Coveo side of the house is that ability for the full search experience to be replaced with Coveo. So that removes the existing Solar integration, both from a keyword search as well as on the product listing pages, and then some pretty advanced faceting capabilities that all happen automatically. So no more, no more rules management, no more synonym management, no more individual boost and bury. That can all be handed off to Coveo and then seamlessly integrated with SAP Commerce Cloud up to the component level, right? So that's both integration on the back end from the run searches as well as the product indexing as well. And then the other piece there that comes with the solution are the product recommendation carousels. So given Coveo's ability to do that one-to-one personalization, it's a natural fit to drive product carousel recommendations. So that can be related or ancillary products on a PDP. It can be cross-sell products within a cart page, or just a home page around, maybe what products are trending or what products right now may be relevant to the user from an order history perspective. So all those come together as capabilities that we've pre-built, and again, are really form the basis of what can be built on further as we work with our customers. So to wrap it up, I wanted to kind of close out with kind of three main themes. So Liz kicked us off really with how we think about composability, but as it stands today, I wanted to kind of wrap up with a few thoughts. And one of those is composability enables flexibility. And and a lot of times we see composability being a bit of that all or nothing, like Riyadh said, and it really isn't meant to be an all or nothing. It's meant to be, where do I need something that's better than what I have today? And then let's swap it out. And it doesn't even have to swap out the whole thing, right? So we can leave some of the content management alone, but swap out those that are really causing the business friction. And the idea isn't that we're constantly replacing vendors, right? There is some talk track around composability being, hey, I want to switch my content provider. Companies aren't switching content providers every week. The idea, though, is you can have flexibility in what capabilities are driven by your content provider. You can have flexibility in how you work with your business without having them tied to, maybe the limitations of the platform that they already have. For us, that's why we built Ascend. And again, it was built as extensions. So it'll certainly work with customers who are adopting SAP Commerce net new, but it also works well for customers who are on SAP already, right? We've got a very large client base that is happily on SAP, but have some needs to augment, right? So they could use a more mature search, or they could use a content management that scales with their business or allows them to drive into more of that storytelling. And so we built Ascend really to be that flexible adaptation, not the you must use it this way type of approach. And then finally, as Liz kicked us off and talked about, really we have to focus this on business value. It does tend to be a technical conversation, but the technology is there to enable the business, not the other way around. And in this case here, it's very easy to get a big plan in place, but start small, right? These projects done correctly, if you look at something like AmSoil, can be self-funding. They can have their own proof points in bring in a capability, swap out a existing business limitation, show the value, and then build from there. And so that's really key for us. That you do need to plan bigger. Where do you want to get at the end? But you don't have to execute on that. You can execute it on incrementally and drive a significant amount of value. So with that, I wanted to leave time for questions. Liz, I think we've got some questions coming in, but I'll hand it back to you here.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you everyone for that time. just to kind of piggyback off of where you were at, Ryan, on some of that, in the name of incremental, how do you start to do that in a non-invasive way, right? I think a lot of our clients and folks on the phone, it's technical debt and big solutions that have built up over a long time. So how do you even get started and try and break apart those incremental approaches to start to realize those gains sooner?
Yeah, no, it's a terrific question. And these two solutions that we talked about today with Contentful and Coveo actually lend themselves really well to that. If you take something like a Contentful, we can swap out one piece of content management. What that allows you to do, take that piece that's updated every 2 days, right? That we're constantly changing, or take that piece that the business struggles to manage, get that solution in place. Maybe it's a landing page for marketers. Maybe it's the homepage banner that they want to swap out the call to action every other day. Get that piece in place, prove out the value, get the business comfortable with using it, how it works, and then find that next piece. And pretty soon what you'll end up with is, there's the concept of the strangler pattern. It's not a very nice analogy, but it's that idea of just slowly working your way to the end result. You don't have to come in and swap out the entire system, right? Same with search and same with others, right? Search could come in and just do keyword, could come in and just be your product carousels. While you're understanding what it can drive from a relevancy, you prove out the relevancy of what it can drive on PDP carousels, and then you justify that next step of taking over the full search, product listing pages, et cetera. So ultimately, a lot of these capabilities lend themselves to incremental value, and that's really, it allows you to drive that business justification very quickly.
And I think if I take the incremental value and pivot it back here to Jim, you on the Contentful side, I love the Ruggable case study as far as you started with, Black Friday pages and where that started, but how often are you seeing that testing approach from a content perspective? Because content's king. It's always the long pole in the tent for a lot of the clients that we work with. But how are you seeing that as it starts small with clients as they start working with Contentful and then rolling that out further across their landscape?
Yeah, I think that's quite the norm now. So, Contentful, we offer a free trial, so you can try us for free. There's no need to, make initially a purchase, and you can do a trial, you can do a POC, and start with just, like a hero banner or something. Okay, power that with Contentful, and then as Ryan mentioned, then move to some like how-to page or something, and then eventually start moving your editorial pages, your content pages to Contentful, where eventually maybe only your PDP pages and your product listing pages are being powered by your commerce platform. So you can start very, very small, do it very safely in a large number of small steps. And that's exactly what Ruggable did. They initially, their entire site was powered by their commerce platform, but they started doing how-to pages with Contentful. And then eventually their entire home page is now powered by Contentful, but their PDP pages are primarily being driven by their commerce platform. So it's a norm. It's a very, very safe way to kind of experiment and prove out the value without a large upfront investment.
Speaking of the value, Lisa, I want to kind of pivot. We focus, and as Ryan mentioned, a lot of when we look at a Coveo solution driven by conversions and the revenue gains that you can have for incremental improvement from a search experience. But I think with the power of the AI, can you talk a little bit of maybe the operational efficiency? Ryan touched on it a bit, but I think for that, driving that personalization and elevating that experience, can you talk a little of how Coveo dives in the not revenue generation, but even just the cost saving side, I think in this economic climate of how you can start to really scale with the power of the AI and tooling?
Sure. We actually do at Coveo. We do work with our customers and with prospects to look at the business value that we can actually provide them with. So even in the spirit of what Ryan and Riyadh were mentioning, that it doesn't need to be a huge effort, it doesn't need to be a huge initiative that lasts too much. You can start with small bits and pieces. And what we do is initially we work with customers to understand, first of all, their business, to look at what sort of catalogs they have, what product they have. We have customers, for example, that have 5 million products and 12 million queries per day. These are large customers with very specific bespoke needs. Understanding that layer of complexity and then trying to break it down a little bit, trying to understand where we can actually look at increasing the revenue if we can get the uplift on conversion rate from search and listings, what areas do we need to work with the customer, and what are the best practices and what we can actually implement to get to raise the average order value online for sessions, for example, with recommendations. If we apply that, does that suit the customer, etc. We look at all the possibilities of reducing the friction through the search, through the additional things and additional layer of functionality that we add on top of that, like query suggestions, the intent-aware product rankings, the cold starter, the vectorizing, the session-aware recommendations that we put in place. All these have drive a specific value, which obviously is relevant to that business themselves, to individually. And we look at reducing the manual search management, for example. That is the outcome we've seen is that it's a tactical search management cost reduction. And sometimes we look at 50 to 80% reduction in costs for customers. So even that simple example can drive and remove some of the massive costs that customers at the moment have no option but to reduce and to address. We're also looking at the moment into the profitability and trying to understand a bit more what is profitable rather than what is the most popular product, for example. So we're doing a lot of work, and we're trying to be as relevant as possible and pass that value on to customers. I hope that answers your question.
No, I think that's tremendous. I think a lot of the folks on the phone would attest to the tuning and the ongoing maintenance, and how do they continuously have to focus on search being better, and just even starting to see those types of gains over and over from a workload perspective, and while driving the incremental revenue. I think it's one of the biggest benefits as you start to look at driving that scale long term, because in this day and age we have to do more with less as we continue on. So one last question, Riyadh, you mentioned a little bit of the announcement and the composable offering that you guys had made back earlier this year. Other than obviously the strategic alignment with a lot of the folks on this call and other partners, what does that mean from an SAP perspective, or how do people need to start thinking about that a little bit differently for what they know historically?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, and it's a great question, by the way. So I think there's two lenses through which to look at it. There's the, more of the technical / architectural lens. That's really more of a continuation of basically the investment that started back, 5 years ago, right? So where we started by beefing up all the APIs, moving into an API first type of paradigm, decoupling the front end with our composable storefront, as well as moving into away from large, heavy annual upgrades that our customers had to do into truly more of a cloud native continuous innovation framework. So that part, I would say, was just the tipping point of that technology investment that had been happening for 5 years, part of our modernization journey, and that will continue to happen, by the way. So this is in no means a destination on that front. The other lens or aspect to consider is really the commercial aspect. And so up until that point, I mean, the way we basically commercialized our cloud service, our cloud solution, was functionally, you pretty much got everything. And even though we had separate editions, think of it as, good, better, best type of edition for, depending on where you were in the market, if you're an enterprise or a mid-market customer and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, functionally, most of the functions were in all of the 3 editions. And so now, I think the difference is you basically have the flexibility to only procure and buy and pay for what you need, Of course, we recognize that some customers still want more of a, best of suite type approach, so that's also available. But we also have the flexibility of allowing customers to pick and choose, if they do need the PIM, or maybe they want to start with our PIM partners. If they do need, the search that comes with, the Solar search that comes with Commerce Cloud, or maybe they want to start right off the bat with Coveo. So that's the level of granularity from a commercial composability perspective.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I know we're at time. If you want to see these extensions in action, please feel free to reach out and we can give you a live demo. Or if there's any other questions tied to this, feel free to reach out. We appreciate the time and attention. I know everyone's very busy here at the end of June, but thank you so much and have a great day.